3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone? You're watching Ash on Comics. My name is Ash. Here's today's comic, Usagi Yojimbo, number 4, by the legendary Stan Sakai, as you can see down here. What is it with legendary comics creators named Stan? Why don't you tell us, Stan? This is Stan the Man, my co-host of the channel, and one of the all-time, well, probably the all-time, not probably, definitively the all-time most famous comic book creator in all of history. This guy is just a legend. You should all know who he is. This is channel sidekick. He is not an all-time legend. He's Forky, but he brings a smile to our face, and he's got a reason for being here together. They're my pals, and yeah, I don't have many friends. No, this is my channel, and here we're going to talk about one of my all-time favorite comics ever, Usagi Yojimbo, dating back to the 80s, when I got into comics. And Usagi Yojimbo started off in an indie book called Albedo. Got his first appearance. If you can track down those old Albedo books, keep them pristine. They're worth a lot of money. I could never find them as a kid, even though I got into Usagi Yojimbo. And, there wasn't eBay back then. It was just... But I did get the first run of the actual Usagi Yojimbos from Fantagraphic Books. I'm very proud to have that in my collection. And the preceding runs after that, I can't remember who they went after with Fantagraphic. I want to say Dark Horse, but maybe it was Dark Horse. Anyways, here we are. Usagi is now being printed by IDW, starting a new run. This is number 4. I did a review of number 1. And I was super excited because I was like, yes, Usagi's back. And it wasn't as good as I was hoping. I was a little let down. I gave it a good review because there's no such thing as a bad Usagi book. But it wasn't... It was fine, I think, for longtime Usagi fans. Terrible for like a new reader to come on, I think. I think if I was a new Usagi person, that book would not have impressed me. It was very different in the fact that it featured sort of like magic and, mythological creatures. Now, Usagi Yojimbo's always had a little bit of that, but it's always been very small and subtle and few and far between. It wasn't to the level where you had like literal like wizards and shit casting spells that much. So it kind of threw me off a little bit. But the story, the next couple issues turned out really well. I really enjoyed the story. And as a Usagi Yojimbo fan, I'm more than satisfied. I thought it was just a 3-issue miniseries, but it turns out it was just an arc. IDW is going to keep printing this new book. It's The Hero, part 1 of 2. And I really love this cover. So let's get into this book. Stan Sakai is the writer, the artist, and the letterer. Colorist Tom Luth. Oh, this is another thing that I appreciate that IDW does. I don't know if you can see down there. Number 242 in a series. So even though this is number 4 from IDW, they don't control the prints of other companies. They are keeping track of all the times that Usagi's been in print. So if you are a collector, you can know where this stands in your collection. I think that's pretty cool. Good job on you guys, even though you couldn't have made that any smaller. The Hero, part 1. Lurk, yeah. Shibito, stay back. Stay back. That translated is to zombies. Yeah. We see Usagi fighting zombie samurai. So right away, as I was talking about, I was a little disappointed in the whole fantastical element of Usagi. This has never been a big thing with him. I was like, oh, really? The next story, he's fighting zombies now? This is weird. Like, I like Usagi when it's more grounded in reality, in Japanese lore, not folklore. And so I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to give it a chance. And then we see, help! And I thought this was a cool Easter egg. Gru. So if you don't know, Stan Sakai is the letterer on Sergio Aragone's Gru book. Gru's also one of my all-time favorite comics dating back to the 80s. Gru the Wanderer is kind of a parody of a Conan. Highly recommend if you can find old Gru. They're timeless. So if you can find any old Grus, trade paperbacks, whatever, just get some and read them. You will understand. They're so funny. Help! What? Save me, my hero, milady. The longer she stays here, the more she becomes as us, until she is fit to become my bride. You know, and you're just like seeing Usagi, oh no. So, you know, the zombies are coming. You will never get her. And he's fighting the zombies. And it's a real basic story at this point. Usagi is like, ha ha ha. Typical villain, very cliche, the fool. Hero? And Usagi's fighting an overwhelming tide just going on. And you might be thinking so far, like, this seems a little overly simplistic. The cartoony art style doesn't necessarily lend itself to the action scenes, which is a fair critique. If you're a person who is not already a fan of Usagi Yojimbo, you might look at this and you go, I don't want to read. It's so cartoony and stuff, and that is true. Usagi Yojimbo is cartoon art. But please don't let that dissuade you. It is emphasis on the second part of that, cartoon art. This is art in every way, shape, or form. And Sakai he's finally honed his craft over the last 30 years. Or was it 35 years? I think it's coming up on the 35th anniversary. And it's subtle. And once you get an appreciation of it, once you're like, okay, you let go of it's not going to be the comic art you're normally attuned to. You stop seeing it. I used to be really prejudiced against this book. And surprise, I'm prejudiced against everything until the other way around. But that's how I come to love things. I put up my guard and I go, that looks dumb. But you win me over, and then I become a loyal fan. Usagi Yojimbo was kind of that way. I came across first as a Turtles fan. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was cool. I looked at Usagi Yojimbo, I was like, it looks like a silly rabbit book. And he used to look a lot more cartoony in the older days, if you will. But then I read it, and you see the tone and the seriousness of it, and you're like, oh, I get this. It's not just a silly animal book. It's an actual samurai story with just using animals in place of the norm, and it's really cool. Sakai tells a story that is for all ages. He doesn't have swearing. He doesn't have adult, he doesn't have anything risque or ultra violent. You'll notice a lot of the fighting, you'll see swordplay and slashes, but when people see this guy just got his head cut off, right? But you barely notice it unless you're looking for it. There's no spurting blood. When people die, you know that they die because they'll have a little bubble over their head with a skull and crossbones. So I believe this is safe, obviously you decide for your own children, but this is a book that you could read with your children. And I encourage you to do so because these stories are multi-layered. They're simple enough for kids to get. A story about a hero saving the day and doing the right thing, right? And facing danger and stopping the danger. But there's also multi-layers for adults to appreciate, learning about the culture of Japan and the nuances of the psychology of people in this culture and stuff that kids don't need to know or have to appreciate the story. I can't speak enough about it. You just look at it on the surface and go, it looks like a silly... It's not. I implore you to sit down and read some books and just enjoy them and let them wash over you. It's refreshing. So we get to this part, and I kind of spoiled it. I'm going ahead. And it's like, my hero, look out. And he's still fighting. And then we flip, and it's flump, closing the book. And we see Usagi going, wow. And so this was all in his head. He was reading a book, just like I was, enjoying the story. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool reveal for me because I was a fan. I'm reading and I'm going, I'm not so happy with the fantasy part. But Usagi was reading a fictional book. And I was like, oh, that works. So now I really get to appreciate it. And here he is talking to this woman who's an author of the book. And he's like, I have never before met an author. You're very talented. Thank you. And she talks about how she's descended from a long line of writers and everything, but her family's lost favor, and she's been forced into an arranged marriage with this husband who's a Hatamoto. But since there's peacetime, the Hatamoto can't show off his warrior prowess, so he is actually in lesser favor than her. She's now elevating him when it was supposed to be vice versa. He's very jealous. All he's saying, so he's very angry with her all the time, and as she fears he hates her. And so she's going to a faraway village to visit her father and give her husband some time alone. And so Usagi's like, well, I'll accompany you, because he's a wandering Ronin, and he's got nothing to do but just wander. So he's like, hey, how about I'll be your escort, because she realizes that she didn't even she was such in a rush to leave where she didn't have an escort. So she's like, oh, okay, that's great. So they talk about these things on their tales, or on their journey. They talk about these various things that I just kind of explained. And we get to a point where the samurai appear. And I'm missing some of the great things. She's like, do you accept my offer? Haha, why thank you, Usagi. And so your story is exciting, and we feel for your characters. You write about heroes doing great deeds. They are like the heroes of ancient legends, but I can still relate to them and their struggles. Thank you, Usagi. We all need heroes. And I just thought that was a really great point. I don't know if Sakai was trying to make any sort of cultural references to today, the modern culture war and things like that. But I do feel he was making a reference to the importance of comics in general. And what a lot of people in my side of the comics culture war thing argue constantly is that stories should be about good heroes doing good things. And it's important. We want to identify with their struggles, right? And Usagi, having this conversation, I was just thinking about it. And there's other parts in the book that I might have skipped over here because I don't want to read every panel to you or whatever. But that were like that I was like, wow. And Usagi's like, oh, there's riders approaching fast. Move to the side of the road, Lady Mura. I know those samurai, Usagi. They are my husband's retainers. So they approach. There she is. Lady Mura, your husband has demanded you return home. I will be back in a few days after I have visited my father. You will come with us now. Your husband has ordered it. Lady Mira has given your answer. She's just like, oh, no. But Usagi is not one to be intimidated by anybody. And so they're like, stay out of this, Ronin. It's not your concern. To which he responds, it is my concern. Lady Mira has hired me to be her bodyguard. And she's like, Usagi, no, I don't want to be the cause of trouble. And he's just like, no. You should have listened to her, Ronin. You will die, and we will still deliver her to her husband. And then you see he's starting to draw his sword. And then Usagi puts his hand on his sword, but you'll notice where he places his hand. And he just draws his sword, still in its sheath, and knocks this guy off his horse. And he says, leave us in peace. And then he steps in front of stay behind me, Lady Mira. And he fights them all, one by one, batting him with, just the sheathed sword, taking them all out. And I'll just kind of skip past here till we get to the part where he's like, leave now before I get really mad. You will regret this, Ronin. You mean letting you go? I probably will. Let's get out of here. We'll remember you, Ronin. I know you will, he says. Are you all right, Usagi-san? And I'm sitting here going, at this point, reading the book, and I have to pause, and I'm like, wow, this book has more masculinity, more testosterone. Apparently, my new text program interrupts my videos too. That's going to be a problem. Sorry about that. Right in the middle of what I was going with. So I'm reading this book, and you look at the imagery here, this cartoon. It's a cartoon bunny with everyone's a cartoon animal, and yet it's got more masculinity than your typical, American comic. And I just that is just a sad state of culture today. That this is what a guy hero looks like, right? Right? And it's in no way bemeaning, is that the right, this character, Mura, right? There's no way, it in no way is going, oh, you're just a stupid woman that's not equal to men. If anything, Usagi, is does nothing but honor her and realizes, her great importance as a writer and these things. Yes, she can't wield a sword like Usagi, but that isn't what makes someone great. That's what a lot of people in modern comics don't seem to understand, that if there's something a man can do that a woman can't do, that's being chauvinistic. Sorry, that's a word we don't use anymore. That's being misogynistic. It's being bigoted and hateful. No, it's not. There are things men can do that women can't. Sorry, it's just the way that it is. It's the way that it's always going to be. But women can be great at other things that men aren't great at, right? And we can complement each other, yin yang. And this is the thing that Asians have over Western culture. They're not ashamed of their gender. They don't have this role problem. Yes, women have lived a subservient lifestyle for a long time, but women are then honored. Anyways, I know someone's going to be in the comments and try to correct me and stuff, and I'm not trying to say Asia is utopia, okay? Don't mistake that. I'm pointing out certain things that aren't having a problem with. And here we see Usagi's bowing his head. I'm unharmed, but I apologize for having been so violent in your presence. He's apologizing for standing up for her. Thank you for sparing their lives. I only kill when I have to. You came to my rescue, Usagi-san. Huh? You are my hero. What? Thank you, but I am no hero. I just try to do what is right. Look at that. Oh, thank you, Stan. In such a subtle thing. This is another thing about heroes, by the way. Heroes don't think of themselves as heroes. A real hero, right? You ever see, like on the news, when someone does something heroic? Remember, like several years back, that Oregon school shooting, and that guy that like charged in and he got shot, but he like got the gunner. That guy didn't think he was a hero. The two guys on the train that Clint Eastwood made a movie about, the military guys that like charged the gunman on the train and got shot, but they tackle him. Those guys they didn't think of themselves as heroes, right? The firemen that charged up in the World Trade Center, which, by the way, 9/11 anniversary is coming up. I don't know when this is getting published, but please take time to remember that day. And Benghazi is the other 9/11 that people like to sweep under the rug. These guys didn't think of themselves as heroes. Oh yeah, by the way, watch the movie 13 Hours, or read the book even better if you want to talk about a story of true heroism. Heroes never think of themselves as heroes. And here, our main hero, written by Stan, there's no self-aggrandizement. In modern comics, Usagi would be taking a selfie of himself and being like, look at me, look at how awesome I am. I kicked those guys' ass. And that's all it would be about, is how awesome they are. This is the refreshing. I can't speak enough. And it's so subtle and simple and beautiful. Look at this. It might be cartoon art, but the composition of this piece, it's so beautiful. And then they come into the Japanese town and you see these different characters, and Stan captures the personalities and the feelings of these people with the animals, much in the same way that classic Disney has done in the past and probably will in the future, but hasn't done as much in modern times. And come on, there's a thinking critical. It's getting a little thing you saw. Yep, he's appeared on my channel. See, there you go, Wes. You've been on my channel. We will not arrive to my father's home till tomorrow. I do not want another incident. We should not stay at an inn here in town. Seizo could find us and cause a scene. And I really loved this. We see this guy just kind of standing here and different people of the town. And Sakai isn't just an artist. He's not just a writer. He's a letterer. And he understands he's good at how to do lettering properly, placement in the panel. And it probably helps that he's the artist too. But this lettering, as you're reading, cause a scene, leads you right to this guy. And then you're reading here, but we cannot sleep on the streets. And Usagi says, there's an abandoned temple nearby where I was planning to spend the night. And look at, again, night, boom, you see this guy going, and he's wringing his hands in a classic villainous, opportunistic type thing. So we immediately know something's up with him. and they're walking through the town. And there he is again, following, and there he is again. And it's so. These are types of things that aren't easily done, or I should say, not that modern artists and writers don't do very well. Some of these little subtleties. Also, I love these little lizards. They always appear, just like in Stan's books. So they decide to go to the town, and I'm not going to go through all that, but they come to it, and she's just like, oh, this is very nice. Have you stayed many of these temples? And of course, she's kind of a spoiled rich girl, so she's never seen any things. And he's like, yeah, actually, they're usually worse than this. And he offers her, here's the best corner. You can sleep here. I'll take the opposite corner. And she happily does. She's sleeping, and Usagi's reading the book. And we panel down, and we see some swords. And it's to be continued. So it's a really cool sort of cliffhanger moment. And just a charming book. At the end of every Usagi book, classically, and IDW is no different apparently, we get some sort of afterword or postscript from Stan Sakai. This is by Ruth Wold. And she has some story notes about the book The Tale of Genji, which I believe the author of that book was probably the inspiration of this character in this book, or this story. And it's fun to read some of these things. You always get this history lesson and insight into Japanese lore and history and culture and everything that helps you really appreciate the books even more. But you don't have to read it if you don't want. It's just one page. It's not 15 pages like a Hickman X-Men book. Oh, snap. Just kidding. Those Hickman X-Men books are good. But I cannot recommend Usagi Yojimbo enough to you. I'm going to try to wrap this up. I didn't want to spend this long. Understand this when you read Usagi Yojimbo. It's not going to blow you away when you read it, right? When I say Usagi Yojimbo is one of the best comics ever, it's not because I read one issue and I was just like, oh my god, Stan Sakai is on a whole nother level. It's not like that. It's 35 years upcoming soon of writing comics, and there's never a bad issue. You always leave a Stan Sakai comic, a Usagi Yojimbo comic, with a smile on your face. It's charming. It feels good. There's never any of the nonsense that's riddled in modern day comics where you just have to grind your teeth and be like, oh, come on, why are you putting this in there? Like when you watch Avengers Endgame and you're just like, oh, this is a good movie. God, why do I have to watch Thor sit around and be fat Thor and stupid? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's never these parts where you're just like, oh, face palm. It's solid all the way through. This is the equivalent of an In-N-Out burger on the page. Everything that I love about that, it's an In-N-Out burger is not a life-changing burger either, but it's just a solid feel-good. Every single time you're like, wow, I'm glad I had that. That was really good. This is the same thing. You will be charmed by Stan Sakai and his character Usagi Yojimbo, who is just a wonderful character that you're going to want to read his exploits for years and years to come. And for those people who are like, I'm tired of being written for the trade. I hate books that are written for the trade. I'm kind of with you. Well, no, I'm not. I just rewind. I actually like books that are written for the trade because I don't think one-shots are done very well. Stan Sakai writes short stories. Like, this is a 2-part story. The last one was a 3. And he does them really well. They're almost like parables. And I really it's one of the few books where I do enjoy not having a long saga. Every once in a while, Stan does some long story arcs, like his famous Grass Cutter one, I think was like 7 issues. But usually they're just a comic or 2 or 3 at most. And you get these little short stories and you get to fun. Oh, that was fun. On to the next adventure. And I don't know how he just keeps things feeling fresh over and over and over. But I think mostly it's because of these characters. You just enjoy all of his characters and the interaction. And Usagi is so strong that you just enjoy seeing him. And it's refreshing. I'm going to go on and blabber till the cows come home. So hopefully you'll read this book. Check out Usagi Yojimbo. If you're not sold, start at the beginning. Pick up like the first trade of the Fantagraphics edition comic. I forget what it's called, but you can find it. I mean, you know how to use Google and Amazon, I'm sure, right? You're living in the 21st century. check that out. It give you the origin of Usagi when he was training as a little wee tyke, and that's a really fun story of his origin. So I'm gonna let this go, and thank you for watching. This is Stan. This is Forky. I'm Ash, and that's Usagi Yojimbo. Read more good comics.